Hey guys, I wanted to go ahead and record a Sunday school lesson for us, just so that we're staying in the Word together and listening for God's voice in our lives. So today's lesson comes to us out of the book of Genesis. It's about a lady that kind of had, she had funny eyes. We'll just say that, like funny eyes. To get into that, I want to show you something from back in the day, the Wayback Machine. Have y'all ever seen these kinds of photos? All right, you're supposed to be able to look at them and pull them back and see an image in the back. And I was never able to see these. But somehow or another, if you can relax your eyes and as you're moving it away, you can usually see, or some people can, I can't. You can see the object behind all the other small little pictures. And that's kind of how God is. As God's able to see who we really are and what's behind all of the mess and sometimes our bad ideals about who we are. And we're going to look at Leah's story and find out a little bit more about her. I'm going to leave a link for Magic Eyes. That's a website where you can download you a picture like that and see if you can see them. And maybe you've seen them like this, but they used to be really popular back when I was a kid. So check it out. See if you can see it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Hope you can. So we're going to get into the Word. We're going to go to the book of Genesis. Genesis, remember what that means? That means at the head, Hebrew for head, or at the beginning. And that's where we're going to be, okay? All right, so we're back in Genesis, chapter 29. Remember we talked about Jacob and Esau the last time we were together and how their names worked with their identity, and how God helped change Jacob's identity. He was kind of a tricky kind of guy, and God changed his name in a very strange way. He wrestled with God. But now we're going to talk a little bit more. Jacob still uses the same name, and he goes off to find a wife, and he meets a distant relative, and decides to hang out with him for a little while. Because remember, Esau was trying to chop his head off, which is not a good thing. All right, so let me read this. And Laban said to him, to Jacob, "Surely you are bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me what you shall your wages be." Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the oldest, was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And this is the funny part. Leah's eyes were lovely or funny. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Rachel was graceful and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel, so he said to her, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went in to her. And when the morning came, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why then did you deceive me?" Okay, so Uncle Laban had two daughters, and one of them had lovely eyes. In other words, it was kind of cross-eyed, really, is basically what that meant. Why do you think they described the sisters? One of them had lovely eyes, cross-eyed, and the other was lovely and graceful. Why do you think they would do that? It's a good question. How do you think Leah felt? If you were, well, all of y'all have got siblings, and you know the difference between the two of you, or your other ones. How does it feel to know you're different? So, are there still, when you go to school, how are you known? That's a good question. And sometimes that can be something you're comfortable with, and sometimes that can be something you're not comfortable with. But that's just a part of life. We all look different, okay? So let me continue to read. All right? So Laban said, "This is not done in our country." So in other words, it's not our custom. Giving the younger daughter, remember Rachel was younger than Leah, "Complete the week of this one, and we will give you to another in return for serving me for another 7 years." So in other words, he's already worked 7 years to get to marry who he thought he was going to marry. But then his uncle tricked him. Remember, he's a trickster. Jacob's a trickster, and the trickster got tricked. And so now he's got to work another 7 years for his second wife. So Jacob went in and he loved Rachel more than Leah. He served Laban for another 7 years. Then the Lord saw that Leah was unloved. He opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And then they have a bunch of kids, and one of them is named Judah. Do you remember anybody else or any time else that the word or the name Judah was important in the scriptures? So obviously, again, a very different kind of setup. Marriage in that day didn't have anything to do with love so much. Although here, at least, Jacob loved Rachel. But he was married to Leah, so he had to work, and so he has two wives, and he loves one and doesn't love the other. Now, you know that's got to be odd. And so in the olden times, a woman's value very much was wrapped up in her ability to have kids. And that's just how it was back then. It doesn't mean that's how it should be. So it was in the Bible, but that's not how God would want us to treat each other, okay? So that's a very important part of the lesson. But God saw Leah and saw her difficulty. She was not loved. She was in a relationship that was awkward and weird and bad. And God showed her love by allowing her to have kids. Rachel, who was loved, she didn't have kids at this point. And so it's kind of an odd thing. But in the middle of this very weird story, God allows and gives a gift to this one who would be kind of ostracized and on the outside looking in. She gets a special gift, and she will be the great grandma to King David. So, because that was the answer to my question earlier. Where have you heard the name Judah? The Lion of the tribe of Judah is David, which will eventually be Jesus. So he was a part of this very special line and a very special part of what God was doing. So that's a very important part. I want to leave you a link to another video clip from the movie 8th Grade. It's about a young girl named Kayla, and she's struggling to accept herself in the complex world of social media and just being a teenager. And that's a pretty tough thing to be, because you're going through a lot of emotions and worry about yourself and how everybody else thinks about you. So it's a pretty interesting story. So I want you to stop and click on that, find that link in the description of this video, and watch that and come back, okay? All right, so I'm assuming you've now had the chance to watch the video. Why do we have so much trouble accepting ourselves in today's world? Have you ever felt like Kayla, just completely kind of out of touch, disconnected? The world makes for a poor mirror. You ever looked at yourself in the mirror and said, I don't know if I look good today? When we jump on Instagram or Snapchat, there are countless filters to make us look better or prettier or funnier. How do you think you would look if you could view yourself through a God filter? Good question. Remember in the story, Leah had a description of lovely eyes or cross-eyed, depending on your translation. But God saw something beyond what everybody else described her as, okay? The creator of the universe made each one of you. If you started to place stock in the mission of God for your life, to bring Christ into the world, you would start to see value in who you are and in what you do. As Leah gave birth to the line that gave hope to the world, so you can start something in the world that gives hope, that isn't just based on your skin deep value. So that really is, again, how you determine what you're worth. And if we're a believer, we begin to understand that we're simply valuable because God created us. So as you continue to go through your teenage years, as you continue to hang out there at the house and not go a lot of places, try not to catch coronavirus, the question I want you to be thinking about is where are you getting your value? Remember, that comes from your relationship with God. And we don't have to make God like us. We don't have to be pretty or do a lot of stuff to get God to love us. We're simply loved by God just because of who we are. God loves us just the way we are, just where we are, no matter what we've done prior to this, no matter what we're struggling with or what kind of doubts we have. God loves you just the way you are, right where you are. And if you can rest in that and just live in that, God's love can begin to shape and mold you in some very, very special ways. So having said that, let's close with a very familiar prayer, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Thank y'all for hanging out with me for just a brief minute. A little bit more than a minute, but still, thanks for hanging out with me. Hope you're all doing good.